What is up, guys? Chris Barr the First here. Welcome back to another episode of Talking Trains. In today's episode, what we're going to be talking about is steam locomotives, how they work, and what they actually are. That is what we're talking about today on Talking Trains. Again, you are watching the Talking Trains series on the Chris Barker the First Productions channel. I'm your host, Chris Barker. Let's get this show underway. Now, what is a steam locomotive? A steam locomotive is the less modern version of the locomotive compared to the diesel engine or the diesel locomotive. Steam locomotives came in all shapes and sizes, including this one on screen. This is Reading and Northern 2102 or X Reading T1 number 2102. And I gotta say, 2102 is a huge engine. Before we get into 2102 here, I want to talk about geared locomotives. Now, the geared locomotives, that includes the Shay, the Heisler, and the Climax. Those three locomotives were mainly used as logging locomotives. I don't have any pictures of those locomotives on my part, but believe me, that's what they were used for. Anyway, getting back into the mainline stuff here. So right here we have 2102. Now 2102, we're going to talk about how it works. Now, we just told you what a steam locomotive is. A steam locomotive is the downgraded version, or the less modern version, to the diesel engine. It's also why it's called a steam locomotive. It's because it's powered by steam. That's why it's called a steam locomotive. Now, how do steam locomotives work? Well, I'm glad you asked, my friend. I'm glad you asked. So I'm going to put a diagram up on screen right here. Okay. Over to your left, you'll see a very special car. That car is holding coal and water. The blue represents the water and the black represents the coal. What that car is called, it's a very special car. That car attached on the back of the engine is called the tender. And the tender houses pipes and houses storage for the coal. Now the pipes feed up through the engine into the boiler. Now the coal is used to fuel up the firebox. Now there are two main people on the locomotive or the crew. It consists of an engineer, which makes sure the train's running correctly and makes sure he drives the train. But you also have your fireman. Now your fireman is your human engine on the locomotive. What that fireman's doing is he's shoveling coal from the tender to the firebox. What the firebox is used for is to heat up the water and turn the water into steam. Then the locomotive is primed with water, and it's also it's very very hot with steam. Once that happens, then the steam gets pushed to the front of the locomotive, down through a bunch of pipes, as you can see right there, into something what we call the piston or the cylinders. Now, these pistons are powered strictly by steam. When the throttle is engaged, steam will be pushed towards the piston, pushing up against the piston and causing the wheels to start turning. It would be so much pressure in that piston, it pushes them rods, which are called coupling rods, is what we call they is what I used to call them. I don't know if that's what they call them or not these days. So basically, the piston would push the coupling rods. The coupling rods are attached to the wheels, which makes the locomotive move forward, or if the engineer has the reverse, the locomotive in reverse, the locomotive will go in reverse. Now, what is up with all that smoke that comes out of the smokestack? Well, the firebox has smoke, a lot of smoke. Depending on what the engineers has what throttle or what gauge or what valve he has engaged, it will either smoke a lot or it will smoke a little bit. And when the locomotive starts to move, you'll see white steam come out of the side of the locomotive. That is pressure releasing from the locomotive. So, other than that, those are really the basic type of components to the locomotive. It runs basically like a steam engine. Like, you could create your own steam engine at home, but this is the more larger version of it. So, when there's too much smoke in this firebox, it gets cycled out through the exhaust system, which is pipes that goes to the front of the locomotive, and out through the smokestack there that you see. So, yeah, that's how a locomotive works. And the smoke will only pour out if there's a lot of power or a lot of pressure in, or a lot of smoke in the boiler or in the firebox, or if the engineer has a valve pulled or the throttle in a certain direction. I'm not good with all that, so we're going to leave it at that. But basically, that, my friends, is how a steam locomotive works. And, yeah, that's how a steam locomotive works. Pretty awesome. Oh, and there was one more thing I wanted to say. Steam whistles. How do steam whistles work? It's pretty simple. There is so much pressure pushed up against the steam whistle, right? That way, when they release it, it makes this really loud sound. And that is really how a steam whistle works. It's basically built up pressure from the boiler that builds up. It's pressure from the boiler that builds up, and then when the engineer blows a whistle, that a valve will open, and there would be a huge loud sound. And that is how a steam whistle works. It's pretty cool. And that's pretty much it for steam locomotives. Pretty cool. So, folks, that is a rundown on steam locomotives. I gotta tell you, I think steam locomotives are some of the coolest pieces of railroad equipment there ever was. I think steam locomotives are so cool. How they chug, they do the chugga 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 sound, and they have their awesome whistle. And I'm hoping in the future that more steam locomotives can be restored to operational condition than what we have now. I think that would be really, really cool to see more steam locomotives kind of like this. I think that'd be really neat. Until next time, thank you for watching